I'm showing you how to make my cute gift layers quilt today. My sample block turned out cute, and I've chosen this Jolly Good layer cake from Moda to make our sample quilt from. So let's open her up and I'll show you how to do it. So we're going to be using all 42 layer cake squares to make this quilt, and you need to sort them into 3 different piles. You want to choose 24 of the darker prints to become the gifts and the bows in each block, and then 12 of the lighter prints to become the backgrounds in each block. The 6 you're left over with, those will become the top and bottom borders. I do have a handy $5 PDF pattern linked below, so you won't need to take notes, and every sale truly does support my channel. I thank you so much. Now, let's cut. So let's start with the dark gift prints. I've got 4 stacked together, and make sure your directional prints are going up, because the first cut you want to make is off the top. I'm going to turn it sideways, and we're going to cut 2.5 inches off the top. Okay, turn that back this way. This piece should now be 7.5 already. There we go. And we're going to cut the big chunks of our gift. So those need to be 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got that. We're going to cut one more, 4 inches. And then the last little sliver, we need to cut him down to 1.5 inches. Right? That trash. And then this top piece, scooch these out of the way, bring him back in. We need 2 2.5 inch squares. 1, 2. This little pile, save that in your scrap bin. Okay, quick recap. You're going to cut this first. You need 2 2.5 inch squares off the top, 2 4-inch by 7.5 inch rectangles to be the gifts, and then 1 1.5 by 7.5 inch skinny strip. And then this 2 2.5 by 5, that can go in your scrap bin for later. Now let's cut the backgrounds. I have 4 more stacked together, and these aren't really directional, but if they are, you're going to want to turn it sideways first, and you want to cut it into 4 2.5 inch strips to begin with. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, turn these sideways. We want to cut 2.5 inch squares, 1, and then this piece we need to cut 4.5 inches. Right, and then we'll do the same thing with this one. 2.5 inch squares first, 1, 2, and then the rectangle needs to be 4.5. Then the longer ones, we need to just trim them to 8.5 inches. 8.5. Quick recap on the background. Cut 4 2.5 inch strips first. You need 4 2.5 inch squares, 2 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles, and 2 2.5 by 8.5 inch rectangles. So the last step in cutting is your border, top and bottom border rectangles. I'm going to stack 3 this time together because you're going to have 6 total. All right, you want to cut them in half first, 5 inches. Whoop. And then we're going to cut them to 8.5. 5 inch by 8.5 inch rectangles for the top and bottom borders, and you're going to need 12 total. All right, let's put together some blocks. So before we sew, we got to swap our blocks out. You're going to take all the 2.5 by 8.5 inch background rectangles and set them aside for now. We're going to use those later. Swap these little prints around so we can do some sewing. We're going to move our gifts first. And then you would take your little ribbons and match them up. These go here, go with your stripe. Right, these are your top bows. Then you would choose backgrounds. You're going to put the 4.5 inch rectangle in the middle. So then you find the little squares to go on either end. And before you go to the sewing machine, you need to take all your little bow squares and you want to draw a line from corner to corner. And when you have the stripy one, let's see, I want to make sure that my stripes go the same way as this. So that would be the line to draw it on, right? And then here, nope. Yep, there we go. So mark your lines, and then we will go to the sewing machine. Yep. All right, let's make a gift block. First thing you want to do, take your little 2.5-inch bow square, line them up on the edge there, and we're going to stitch directly on the line you drew, corner to corner. Here we go. All right, cut that. You want to trim away this extra. You can use your rotary cutter here if you want. I'm just going to use scissors real quick, like, whoop. Okay. Push him back. Give him a little finger press. Take my second one. We're going to put him on the other side. Line him up in the corner. Just directly on the line. Okay. Cut away your extra. Press. Then you're going to add your backgrounds to either side of your bow, like so. I'm just going to sew the one for now. 1/4-inch seam. And then you would sew your bow strip into the gift. Same thing. Cut. All right. Press towards the skinny bow strip. Then press this towards the background square, right? Cut that away. Add your other square here. Add your other rectangle here. And then put your bow on top of your gift. All right. And then you would just press everything down toward the gift. Look how cute. All right, you're going to make 24 gift blocks. And then it'll be layout time. You've made all your gift blocks, and we want to lay them out into 4 rows with 6 blocks in each row. Then you're going to find the matching 2.5-inch by 8.5-inch background rectangle that matches with each block, and you want to add them to the top or bottom of each gift, alternating as you go along each row. After you've added all your rectangles, sew your horizontal rows together first, and then sew the 4 rows together. Now for the final step, piecing and adding our top and bottom borders. Piece together 6 5-inch by 8.5-inch border rectangles for each one, and then add them to the top and bottom. My gift layers quilt top is finished, and I simply love it. I've got a sneak peek of the next quilt tutorial that'll be coming next month, so be sure and subscribe so you don't miss the cute snowman one. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. Bye.